Dear Lord, thank you for this day and for the opportunity to learn together. We ask for your blessings on our teachers and classmates, and for your guidance as we explore new ideas and grow in our understanding. Help us to be kind and respectful to one another, and to listen attentively to our teachers. Give us the strength to focus on our studies and to do our best in everything we do. We thank you for the gift of knowledge and for the chance to learn and grow. Amen.
Good day, my dear pupils. I am teacher Lisa, and today we will be learning about the teaching language called grammar translation method. Are you ready, my dear pupils?
Yes, teacher Lisa.
Great! Let's start by looking at some words in different languages. Can you read number 1, Lyle? Cinema, English. Excellent, Lyle. Now, Rona, can you read the second one?
Cinema, French.
Perfect. Then, what about the last one, Jacqueline?
Cinema, Filipino.
Good job. Now, do you notice anything similar between these words?
They sound alike, teacher.
Yes, they have a connection. So these words show languages can be similar. Learning grammar and vocabulary helps us understand our own language and new ones.
What do we learn next, teacher?
Now, let's talk about the grammar translation method. This method focuses on reading and now, let's practice with some sentences. Rona, can you translate these sentences into a Filipino? The cat is black.
Ang pusa ay
Very good, Rona. Now, Jacqueline, what is a cognate?
It's a word, teacher, that sounds similar in different languages like cinema and cinema, teacher.
Exactly! You all are doing fantastic! Remember, as we learn languages, we not only improve our vocabulary, but also understand our own language better. Now, I'll say a word in English, and you tell me its meaning in Filipino. Okay, ready? Happy means
Masaya!
good job! Keep practicing and you'll get really good at it. Thank you for participating today, everyone, my dear pupils. Remember, learning languages can be fun.
I'm teacher Rona Mixela together with
I'm teacher.
I'm teacher Lisa.
I'm teacher Jacqueline.
and today we'll be learning one of the methods of teaching language arts. Later on, you'll know what
You observe in the video. Keep your answers because later on you'll know what it is.
our topic is all about the grammar translation method and methods of teaching language arts.
Now, let's dig deeper on what is grammar translation method. Teacher Liza, what is grammar translation method?
So grammar translation method is a way to teach languages that focuses on reading and writing. In this method, the teacher explains the rules of the language, and students practice by translating sentences from one language to another. First, we have the learning theory. Teacher Rana, what is the learning theory?
In learning theory, deductive learning is important and essential. First, the teacher gives rules explicitly, then the rules are reinforced with examples and exercises. This means that deductive learning is like starting with a rule and then practicing it. First, the teacher tells you the rule and then you do activities to help you understand it better. Next, we have language theory. Teacher Lyle, can you tell us about the language theory?
Sure, teacher Rona. So language theory is the language is for understanding the literature. Translation is the way to learn the language. Oral communication is not primarily important in this method. Written language is superior to spoken language in this method. Students also learn the structure of their own native language. those who study a foreign language become more cultured and intellectual. This means that learning a language helps us understand books and stories. It's more important to read and write than to speak. When we learn a new language, we also understand our own language better, and it helps us become smarter. Teacher Jacqueline, can you give me an example for language theory?
Yes, for example, if you are learning Spanish, you read a story in Spanish and then translate it into your own language. By doing this, you're not only learning Spanish but also understand how your own language works better. Next, we have the culture. Can you tell me what is culture in grammar translation method, Liza?
Alright, so what is a culture? So culture is limited to literature and fine arts. This means that a culture is mostly about books, stories, and music and the art. Example, if you want to learn about French culture, you read French books and looks at French paintings. These things show what is important in French culture. Next, we have the teacher's rule. Now, Teacher Rona, what is a teacher's rule in grammar translation method?
Teacher's rule. Teacher is the strict authority. Classes are teacher-centered in this method. So it's like the teacher is in charge of everything in the classroom. So students listen and follow the teacher's instruction. For example, in a traditional classroom, the strict teacher leads the lesson while students sit quietly and listen. So the teacher controls the place, gives all instructions, and expects full attention. So students follow closely without much discussion, as a teacher is the main authority and source of knowledge. Now we have the student's role. Can you explain it, Teacher Lyle?
Students' role. Students are the passive receivers of the new information in this method. The teacher starts the activities and directs them. Students are supposed to memorize the rules and the new vocabulary with their meanings in their native language. This means that students listen and learn what the teacher tells them. The teacher leads the class and students follow. Can you give me an example about this, Teacher Jacqueline?
Okay, so for example, in an English class, the teacher gives you new words and their meanings. Your job is to listen, write them down, and memorize them. So, the teacher will guide the activities and you just need to follow along and learn the new words. Now, for the interaction, let's have Liza, Teacher Liza, to explain it.
Okay, so what is interactions? It is often teacher-to-teacher interactions occur. Rarely, student-to-student interactions also occur. So this idea means that most of the time, the teacher talks to the students and students listen or answer. So students don't talk to each other very often in the class. So for example, in a science class, the teacher asks questions and you raise your hand to answer. So sometimes students talk to a classmate during a group work, but this happens less often than when the teacher is talking to the class. In this method, now we have Teacher Rona to explain the vocabulary teaching.
So in vocabulary teaching, the most common vocabulary teaching technique is the memorization of long lists of vocabulary with their equivalents in the student's native language. Other techniques are teaching cognates like cinema with a C to cinema with an S. Like another example is theater and teatro. So using synonyms and antonyms. So this means that in this method, students learn new words by memorizing list of words and their meanings in their own language. Other ways to teach words are by using similar words, like cinema in English is like cinema in another language or in Filipino language, or by teaching words that mean the same synonyms or the opposite, which is antonyms. Now, can you give me an example about this, Teacher Lyle?
Okay, so for example, your teacher gives you a list like happy means masaya in Filipino. Big means malaki in Filipino. In this method, you memorize the list, then the teacher might say happy is the opposite of sad, or teach you that large is another word for big. Now for the grammar teaching, can you explain it, Teacher Jacqueline? Okay, so for example, your teacher gives you a list like happy means masaya in Filipino. Big means malaki in Filipino. In this method, you memorize the list, then the teacher might say happy is the opposite of sad, or teach you that large is another word for big. Now for the grammar teaching, can you explain it, Teacher Jacqueline?
Okay, so in grammar teaching, the teaching of grammar is deductive. So, the teacher introduces the rules explicitly and wants the students to apply these rules to new examples and exercises. So, the students are supposed to memorize the rules. In order to explain the rules, the teacher uses comparison and contrast between the student's native language grammar and target language grammar. So, translation is a common way to clarify the meanings of the new grammar patterns in the target language. Can you provide an example for this, Teacher Liza?
Sure, Teacher Jackie. So for example, in an English class, the teacher explains the past tense rule, asking students to memorize it. The teacher compares this rule with their native language and has them translate sentences to a practice. So students apply the rule in exercises, using a translation to clarify the meaning. So now, for the materials, please explain, Teacher Rona.
In materials, texts from the target language literature are used. The teacher may either write the text or use an authentic literary text. For example, in a French class or in a Filipino class, a teacher gives students a short story written by a famous French author or Filipino author, and then the teacher either selects a story from the French literature or Filipino literature or writes a similar one themselves. So students read the text, analyze its grammar and vocabulary, and discuss its meaning in class. So the goal is to help students understand the language through authentic or carefully crafted literary material. Now, we have syllabus. So can you explain it, Teacher Lyle?
So syllabus, structural syllabus, or the list of structures to be taught during the course is used. The order of structures starts from the easiest. For example, in a Spanish course, the teacher follows a structural syllabus beginning with simple sentence structures like I am or yo soy and basic verb conjugations. As the course progresses, students move to more complex structures such as the past tense and conditional phrases. Each new lesson builds on the previous one, gradually increasing in difficulty with a focus of learning in grammar in a logical step-by-step order. Next, we have role. Teacher Jacqueline, can you explain it?
So we have rule of first language. So the first language is the student's native language. So it has an important function in teaching vocabulary and grammar. Since oral communication in the target language is not important, classroom instructions are given in first language. For example, in a Japanese language class for beginners, the teacher uses the student's native language, which is English, to explain new vocabulary and grammar rules. When introducing Japanese verbs, the teacher explains their meanings and structures in English. Since speaking Japanese isn't the focus, the teacher gives all the classrooms instruction, such as homework, assignments, and exercise direction in English. So this helps students grasp the new concept more easily by relating them to their native language. Next, we have the evaluation. Can you explain it, Teacher Liza?
So next is the evaluation. Translation is an important technique to test students' progress in a target language. In addition, fill-in-the-blank type test items are also used. Synonyms, antonyms, and cognates can be asked to test vocabulary in formal tests. Reading passages and comprehension questions about the passages can also take place in tests as they're reading a section. Can you give me an example about this method, Teacher Rona?
Sure, Teacher Liza. So an example of this is in a German class, the teacher evaluates students using various methods. So the test includes translating sentences from English to German, fill in the blank questions, and identifying synonyms and antonyms. So additionally, there's a reading passage in German followed by comprehension questions to assess understandings. So this approach tests multiple aspects of language learning. So next we have the goals and objectives. Please explain this, Teacher Lyle.
Okay, so now we have goals and objectives. So in this method, among the goals are to teach translation, to read and understand literary texts in the target language, to make students aware of their native language structures and vocabulary, and to improve students' mental capacities with grammar exercises. For example, in a Russian language course, the goals include teaching translation skills and helping students read and understand Russian literature. Students then analyze classic stories to enhance comprehension and recognize the differences between Russian and their native language or the language structure. Additionally, they engage in grammar exercises to improve their mental capabilities such as sentence restructuring and verb conjugation drills. Now we have error correction in this method. Can you explain it, Teacher Jacqueline?
So in error correction, the teacher corrects the errors strictly in this method. Errors are not tolerated. Accuracy is emphasized strictly. So accuracy means grammatical correctness. So for example, in an Italian class, the teacher emphasizes strict accuracy during speaking and writing exercises. So if a student makes a grammatical mistakes, so the teacher immediately corrects it and explains the proper form. Errors are not tolerated, and during written assignments, all inaccuracies are highlighted, requiring students to revise their work for correctness before submission. This approach ensures students prioritize grammatical accuracy in their learning. Next, we have the students' feelings. Can you explain it, Teacher Liza?
So the students' feelings. So there is no information about the grammar translation method deals with students' feelings. So therefore, we cannot consider this method as a humanistic approach. So we have an example. So in a Filipino class, using the grammar translation method, the focus is on the grammar rules and translation exercises, with little attention to students' feelings or emotional engagement. So if a student struggles or feels frustrated, the teacher emphasizes correctness over support. So this disregard for students' emotional experiences means the grammar translation method cannot be considered a humanistic approach to language learning. So we have the next method, the techniques, Teacher Rona.
So for the techniques, we have 9. First is translation of a literary passage. So students translate a passage from the target language into their native language. The passage provides a focus for several classes such as vocabulary and grammatical structures in the passage that are studied in the following lessons. So for the second, we have Teacher Lyle to explain the reading comprehension questions.
Okay, so for reading comprehension questions, students answer questions in the target language based on their understanding of the reading passage. First, they answer information questions whose answers they can find in the passage. Second, they answer inference questions based on their comprehension of the passage, although the answer cannot be found in the passage or directly in the passage. Third, they answer questions that require students to relate the passage to their own experiences. Next is antonym and synonym. Can you explain it, Teacher Jacqueline?
Antonyms and synonyms. So here, students are given one set of words and are asked to find antonyms in the reading passage. A similar exercise could be done by asking students to find synonyms for a particular set of words. For the next one is cognates. Can you explain it?
Now we have the cognates. So students are taught to recognize cognates by learning the spelling or sound patterns that correspond between the languages. So students should be aware of true cognates, the teatre or teatro, and false cognates, the apartment and the apartment. So next we have the deductive application of rule. Can you explain it, Teacher Rona?
Next is deductive application of rule. So here, grammar rules are presented with examples. Exceptions to each rule are also noted. Once students understand a rule, they are asked to apply it to some different examples. So next is fill in the blanks. Can you explain it, Teacher Lyle?
Okay, so now we have the fill in the blanks. Students are given a series of sentences with words missing. They fill in the blanks with new vocabulary items or necessary items of grammatical features. Next, we have memorization. Can you explain it, Teacher Jacqueline?
So we have memorization. Here, the students are given list of target language vocabulary words and their native language equivalents and are asked to memorize them. So the students are also required to memorize grammatical rules and grammatical paradigm such as verb conjugations. Next is use words in sentences. Can you explain it, Teacher Liza?
So next is use words in sentences. So in order to show that students understand the meaning and use of a new vocabulary item, they make up sentences in which they use the new words. So now for the composition, can you explain it, Teacher Rona?
Next is composition. The teacher gives the students a topic to write about in the target language. The topic is based upon some aspect of the reading passage of the lesson. Sometimes instead of creating composition, students are asked to prepare a essay. Next is skills. Can you explain it, Teacher Lyle?
Okay, so now let's have the skills. The primary skills to be improved are reading and writing. Little attention is given to speaking and listening, and almost no attention to pronunciation. For example, in a Filipino course using the grammar translation method, the focus is primarily on reading and writing skills. Students translate text and write analysis, spending little time on speaking or listening. Conversations and pronunciation practice are rarely included, as the class mainly emphasizes written exercises and reading comprehension.
I hope you learned something about this class and now